Welcome to the Enspiring Perspectives podcast, where meaningful conversations lead to meaningful change. Presented by Enspire Consulting Group, this podcast explores the intersection of education, mental health, leadership, and community through honest conversations with experts, practitioners, and changemakers. Whether you're an educator, clinician, parent, leader, or simply passionate about making a difference, each episode is designed to provide practical insights, thoughtful discussion, and perspectives that inform, empower, and inspire. Making a difference is what drives us to create change in our communities. Because every perspective has the power to create change. Now, here's your host, Dr. Frank Edwards.
Why is my child different at home versus at school? That is our point of discussion today. Why is my child different at home versus at school? Have you ever sat in a parent-teacher meeting, listened to everyone describe your child, and wonder whether you were all talking about the same person? At school, the teacher may say, "Your child is quiet. They follow all the directions. They rarely cause problems. They seem completely fine." But at home, that same child may cry over a small request. They may argue. They may shut down. They may even become overwhelmed by homework. Have you ever experienced that? Or they may have an emotional explosion the moment they walk through the door. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I definitely have. Then there is the opposite situation. At home, your child may be calm, playful, cooperative. But at school, that teacher may report that your child struggles to focus, refuses assignments, becomes disruptive, or has difficulty getting along with other students. And when these two versions of your child seem completely different, it can create confusion. I'm sure, some people can relate to this. It's going to cause confusion. It can also create tension. Parents may feel that the school does not understand their child. How many times you guys have thought that, felt that, or even seen that? Teachers may feel that the parent is not seeing the full picture, and both sides may quietly begin to wonder, who's right? Who is right in this situation? The answer may be both of you. Welcome to Enspiring Perspectives, the podcast where you look beyond behaviors, challenge assumptions, and work towards a deeper understanding of children, families, and the people who support them. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Edwards, and today we'll be talking about a question many parents and educators ask. Why is my child so different at home versus at school? Again, why is my child so different at home versus at school? Before we begin, please remember that this episode is for educational purposes. Every child is different, and concerns about a child's emotional behavior, development, and academic function should be discussed with a qualified professional who can evaluate your child's individual needs. Here at Enspire, we can help. If you're interested in our services, please contact us via inspirecg.com or call our office at 215-845-5869. All right, let's begin with one important idea. Behavior does not happen in a vacuum. I will repeat this. Behavior does not happen in a vacuum. A child's behavior is influenced by the environment around them. It can be influenced by the people who are present in that environment, the expectations being placed on them, and the amount of structure they have, the noise in the room, the difficulty of a task, their energy level, and their sense of safety, and whether they believe that they can ask for help. This means a child can behave very differently in two different environments without pretending, without manipulating anyone, or without either adult being dishonest about what they are seeing. The child is the same, but the conditions surrounding the child are different. Let's begin. Let's unpack this one. Let's talk first about the child who appears to do well at school but falls apart at home. Imagine a child who spends the entire school day working very hard to meet expectations. I know some of your children do this. I know you've heard it, right? They sit in their assigned seats, they follow the schedule, they complete their work, they raise their hands, they wait for their turn, they manage the noise in the cafeteria, they even navigate social situations, they move from activity to another. And they try not to show when they are confused, anxious, frustrated, or overwhelmed. But the outside, that child may look successful, but internally, that child may be using an enormous amount of emotional and mental energy. By the time they arrive at home, their ability to keep managing everything may be exhausted. So the parent says, right, and I know you guys can relate to this. Some parents, my child walked through the door and everything fell apart. Have you ever thought that or said that? My child comes through the door and everything falls apart. Their shoes were in the wrong place. The snack was not what they expected. Someone asked about homework. A sibling made a noise, and suddenly my child was crying, yelling, or refusing to do anything. To an adult, that reaction may seem completely out of proportion to what just happened, right? But the reaction may not only be about the shoes, the snack, the homework, or the sibling, right? It may be the release of everything that child has been holding in inside throughout the day. One thing that I wanted to begin to kind of talk about along this lines is what is masking, right? One possible explanation for this pattern is something often called masking. Masking happens when a person hides, suppresses, or compensates for their natural reactions in order to meet the expectation of an environment. Some children may hide confusion because they do not want to look different, right? They may copy what other students are doing. They may remain silent instead of asking for help. They may force themselves to tolerate uncomfortable sounds, textures, or social situations. They may even try to appear calm even when they feel anxious. Masking is not always a deliberate decision. The child may not be thinking, right? I'm going to hide what I'm feeling. They may simply learn that certain behavior receives approval, while other behaviors attract attention, correction, and embarrassment. Over time, that child becomes very good at appearing okay. Appearing okay and feeling okay is not always the same thing. This is why we should be careful about assuming that a child has no difficulties simply because they are quiet, compliant, or performing well academically. Sometimes children who appear to need the least support are working the hardest to avoid showing that they need it. There's another reason some children fall apart at home. Home may be where they feel safest. That doesn't mean parents should ignore harmful or inappropriate behaviors. It does not mean every emotional outburst is acceptable, but it may mean that the child trusts the people at home enough to stop performing. Often, adults often release stress in safe environments too. So it's not just children. Someone may remain professional throughout a difficult workday. I know I've done it. I'm sure you have done it as well, right? And then become quiet, irritable, or emotional when they get home. Again, I've done it. I'm sure my wife can attest to that, right? Children can experience a similar release. Excuse me. The child's behavior may be saying, I have nothing left. I have been trying all day. Have you ever heard it? I've been trying all day, mom. I need less pressure. I need time to recover, or simply, I do not know how to explain what I am feeling. Fatigue is another major factor. By the end of the school day, a child may be mentally, physically, socially, and emotionally tired. How many people, adults, feel that way from time to time? So just imagine a child. Think about everything children are expected to manage. They must listen, remember instructions, shift attention, control impulses, solve problems, interact with peers, respond to adults appropriately and respectfully, right? Keep track of their belongings. And that sometimes that's difficult depending on the child, right? And just when things do not go as planned, for some children, these tasks require far more effort than adults can see. By the time the child gets home, even a simple request may feel like one more demand they cannot manage. Put your book bag away. Start your homework. Tell me about your day. Get ready for practice. Each request may be reasonable, but to an exhausted child, it may feel overwhelming. Sensory needs can also affect how a child behaves in different environments. Schools can be so loud. Have you ever walked through a school building during lunch or just transitionings? They can be so loud. Hallways can be crowded, lights can be bright, classrooms can contain constant movement. There can be bells, scraping chairs, multiple conversations, unexpected touches, strong smells, a limited opportunity to just step away, right? Because they have to be in that classroom, right? They can't just walk out. So some children, right, can process all of that without much difficulty. Others may become increasingly overwhelmed throughout the day. But instead of saying, the room is too loud, the lights are hurting my eyes, or simply, I need a break, or here's a big one. I cannot concentrate with everyone moving around. The child may become restless, withdrawn, irritable, and oppositional. At school, the child may try to suppress that reaction. At home, that reaction may finally come out. Like, yes, I'm home. I can relax. I can take off my shoes and just be me. Structure can also explain why a child does better, in one setting than others. Schools often have predictable schedules, right? There's a time for arrival, there's a time for class, there's a time for lunch, there's a time for recess, and a time to go home. That is the best time of the day, so I've been told by children, right? Sometimes at work, that's the best time. The expectations may be displayed visibly. The teacher may provide reminders. Other children may model what to do. Some children function very well when expectations are clear and predictable. At home, however, the schedule may be more flexible. There may be more choices. Transitions may happen without warning. Different adults may have different expectations. That flexibility can be positive, right? It can be positive, but it can also be difficult for a child who relies heavily on structure. The reverse can also be true. A child may function well at home because the environment is familiar, it's flexible, right? The child may be able to take breaks, move around, ask questions, and choose the order of activities or receive immediate help from a trusted adult. However, at school, that child may struggle because expectations are more rigid, right? Tasks are more individualized, right? And support is not always available at the exact moment that they may need it. All right. So let's let that simmer for a little while. I want you guys to kind of think about that. All right. Now let's consider the child who appears calm and cooperative at home, but struggles significantly at school. And a lot of times this happens, right? A parent may say, we do not see any of these behaviors as they communicate with the teacher, right? That statement may be completely true. The child may not face the same demands at home. They may not have to sit for extended periods of time. They may not even have to share adult attention with 20 or 30 children, of course, right? That's a big family if they did. They may not have to manage complex friendships, group assignments, crowded transitions, or public correction. A child who struggles with reading may avoid assignments at school, right? They can't avoid that at school, but appear perfectly content at home when no one is asking them to read out loud. A child who has difficulty with social communication may play comfortably with siblings, but become confused during unstructured peer interaction. A child who struggles with attention may build for an hour with a favorite toy, but have difficulty concentrating on worksheets they find repetitive or frustrating or difficult or just boring, right? This does not mean the teacher is exaggerating, and it does not mean that the parent is ignoring the problem. It means the environment is asking for different things from that child. Children may also respond differently depending on the relationship they have with the adult, right? A child may cooperate with one teacher and struggle with another. How often have you seen that? I've had a favorite teacher when I went to school. I don't know about you. Have you? This does not automatically mean one adult is good and the other adult is bad. Sometimes the differences involves a communication style, right? A vibe, if you will. One adult may give short, concrete direction. Another may provide several instructions at once. One adult may use humor. Another may speak more formal, right? One adult may notice the child becoming overwhelmed and offer help early. Another may not recognize the signs until the behavior is already escalated. A child's behavior can change when the child feels understood, when expectations are clear, and when the adults approach match what the child needs. Why? I wonder why. The problem oftentimes begins when adults treat their own experiences as the only valid version of the child. A teacher may say, right, this child never has a problem in my classroom, right? A parent hears the difficulties you're seeing at home are not real. My child does not behave like that at home. And the teacher hears, you must be causing the problem. Both statements may be accurate, but when they are used to dismiss the other person's experience, collaboration becomes much more difficult. Instead of asking, who is telling the truth? We really should ask, what is the difference about these two environments? That question moves us away from blaming and towards useful information. When a child behaves differently at home and at school, adults can begin asking several questions. All right. When does the behavior usually happen? Is it during transitions? Is it during independent work, unstructured times, homework, bedtime, after a long day? When plans change? When? Right? When do these behaviors usually happen? And what happens immediately before these behaviors? Well, was the child given a difficult task? Right? Ask yourself that. Were they asked to stop a preferred activity? Was the environment noisy? Did something happen with another child? Right? Were the instructions unclear? And then the question is, what skill might the child be missing? Does the child know how to ask for a break? Do they know how to request for help? Are they in tuned and able to understand how to handle disappointment? Explain that something feels uncomfortable or break a large task into smaller steps from that task. What helps the child recover? And that is something unique possibly to your child, but some general, right? What helps the child to recover? Is it quiet? Is it movement? Is it a virtual schedule? Is it food? Is it time alone, reassurance, clear choices? What is it? What is it? What is working in the environment where the child is most successful? And those are the things that I want us to focus on, both teachers, parents, and adults. What is working in the environment where the child is more or most successful? This one is one of the most important questions. Instead of only studying the problem, study the success. What does the adult do differently in that environment? How is the day structured in that environment? How are instruction given? How much choice does that child have? What support is available? What can be transferred from one setting to another? If we're really talking, right? Let's get into, like a better parent teacher conference. Like, what does that look like? What is that? A productive conversation may sound like this. At home, we notice that our child becomes overwhelmed immediately after school. We are wondering whether they are using a lot of energy to manage the school day. Are there particular times when they seem tired, anxious, or unusually quiet? And as the teacher may say, at school, we notice that your child struggles most during independent writing, right? They appear calm during other parts of the day. What do you notice at home when they are asked to complete assignments? All right. And then what you would say, notice the differences. These questions do not accuse, they invite information, they communicate. I believe what you are seeing. I want you to believe what I am seeing. And I want us to understand the whole child together. Some of the things that I want to highlight are what not to do, right? When behavior differs across setting, avoid immediately assuming that the child is being manipulative, right? Give them the benefit of the doubt. Avoid assuming that the parent lacks discipline, avoid assuming that the teacher is unfair, and avoid assuming that the good grades automatically mean the child is doing well emotionally. We should also avoid telling children, you can control yourself at school, so I know you can control yourself here. That statement, how many times people have said that? How many times have you heard it? That statement may overlook how much effort that child used throughout that day. A more helpful response might be, I can see that you are having a hard time right now. Does that sound a little better? Compassion does not mean removing every expectation. I'll say that again. Compassion does not mean removing every expectation. However, it does mean responding to the child's difficulty in a way that helps them develop the skills they need. Here are some practical steps for you. For a child who regularly falls apart after school, consider creating a transition period before asking questions or beginning homework. The child may need a snack, movement, quiet time, music, or simply 15 to 30 minutes without additional demands. How many adults like to get off work and just take a breather before they begin, right? So just think about that. You might also replace broad questions like, how was school, with more specific questions. What part of the day felt the easiest? What part required the most energy? And was there a time when you wanted help but did not ask, right? Did anything feel loud, too fast, or confusing? Like these type of questions along these lines. Like, and some children will answer immediately. Others may need time. The goal is not to interrogate the child. The goal is to help them develop language for their experiences. Some ways that educators can help, or practical steps would be educators can look beyond whether a child is completing the work and ask whether the child is completing it comfortably or completing it at a significant emotional cost. Notice changes in facial expressions, body posture, participation, energy, and social engagement. A quiet child may still be struggling, right? A quiet child still may be struggling. A complaining child may still need support. And a child who waits until they get home and release their emotions may still benefit from breaks, check ins, emotional adjustments during the school day. Differences between home and school are common, but additional support may be helpful when those differences are intense, persistent, and interfering with the child's daily life. I'll say it again: intense, persistent, and interfering with the child's daily life. For example, a child may need further support if they regularly experience severe emotional outbursts, refuse school, report frequent physical pains, show major changes in sleep or appetite, struggle significantly with learning, or appear exhausted from trying to manage everyday expectations. Support may involve collaboration with the child's teacher, school counselor, pediatrician, psychologist, behavioral health worker or provider, or another qualified professional. The purpose is not simply to place a label on the child, but rather the purpose is to understand what the child is experiencing and identify what will help. As we begin to close and wrap up, some of the most important takeaways from today's episode that I would like to bestow upon you. When a child behaves differently at home and at school, we do not have to decide which version of the child is real. They are all real. The child who cooperates at school is real. The child who falls apart at home is real. The child who plays happily with their family members is real. And the child who struggles with peers in the classroom is real. Each environment reveals something different. Each adult holds one part of the story. And when parents, educators, and professionals bring those parts together, we begin to see the whole child. So instead of asking, why can't my child behave the same everywhere? Try asking, what is the environment requiring from my child? What is the environment requiring from my child? What is helping them succeed? And what is making success more difficult? And what can the adults around the child learn from? Because neither the parent nor the teacher has to be wrong. Sometimes they are simply seeing the child under different conditions. And understanding those conditions may be the first step towards giving that child the support they truly need. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Inspiring Perspectives. Share this episode with your parents, teachers, caregivers, professionals who may need to hear this conversation. And remember, behavior is not just something to correct. There's always something to understand. Until next time, keep looking beyond the behavior and keep creating opportunities for children to feel, understand, and support. My name is Dr. Edwards, and you're watching Inspiring Perspectives. Have a great evening.
Thank you for watching the Inspiring Perspectives podcast, brought to you by Enspire Consulting Group. Follow us for more conversations that empower individuals, strengthen families, and support communities. Until next time, take care And remember to keep inspiring positive change.